Okay. Here we are. Good morning, everybody. It is Monday, February 16th, 2026. It really is amazing how a month being just a couple of days shorter feels like it's a week shorter. Because here we are already. Um, almost at the end of February. Time is just zooming by. So, happy President's Day, everybody. I'm sure if you're one of the lucky ones who get to stay home today, hopefully, you get to make up some of that sleep you would have lost going to work. But if you are at work, thank you for listening. Thank you for having me in the background. It's just me for now. Nita she's at the dentist with her kids. She had to take her kids to the dentist. So she said that if she's able to make it onto the show, if she makes it back home halfway, that she'll jump in. But yeah, so it's just gonna be me. So we're gonna make it work. So so I guess I might as well hit that intro. So we'll be right back. Finally. Welcome everybody to another edition of the Ragin to the vlogs show with just one today, me. Like I said, Nita is at the dentist with her kids, so we don't know if she's going to be able to make it in time to hop in at least midway. But we're gonna make this work. So let's see who's joining. So Lorraine goes, happy Chinese New Year tomorrow. Yeah, I have to do some last minute cleaning today. I bought a new cabinet to put the parakeets on top of, so I got to put that together and clean everything out. And it's like, look, Firehorse is just gonna have to deal with how cramped the the office is. So there's only so much I can do. Right. Oh, and hello, Rodney. Hello. And we have Sarah. Hello, Sarah. Hello. A lot of new people here today. Welcome. Uh, so uh, So yeah, so it's like, yeah, so this is a vlog show that I usually have my co-host Nita with me, where we just talk about indie comics and the work that I'm doing and whatever else that comes to mind. So it's kind of like a general vlog if you're just coming here for the first time. And if you are here for the first time, hello everyone. My name is Daphne Lage, and I am the artist for the furry fantasy adventure Tall Tales and the creator of Egoraven, Heir of the First Unicorn, a medieval fantasy drama you can read online at egoworks.com, and also that you just saw the trailer for the Kickstarter to issue 12 of this 16 issue series. The link is in the comments and in the show notes. And yes, I see you, our beautiful eyeball people watching from regions beyond. If you are joining us, please hit that like, share, and subscribe button, and hit that notify me bell so that you can get notified whenever any of my shows go live. Yeah, so thank you all for joining. Like I said, it's just me today. Usually I have Nita, but she might be able to join us later on in the show. So I guess so a lot of has been happening. It has been a busy weekend for me. And 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 it's like, and I'm still kind of like a little bit out of it because I have been spending these last couple of days finally finishing my book. So which is the reason why there's now a trailer for Egoraven issue 12. So this is the proof copy of the comic. So I still have to look it over and check over all my dialogue and my artwork just to give it one last look over before I send it off to the printer. So, oh, hello, Zarif. Hello. So where can you buy this? So right now, the only place you're going to be able to get Egoraven issue 12 specifically is on Kickstarter. The link is in the show notes. It is a pre-launch link, but now that the book is finished, I can say with some confidence that I will be launching the campaign in March. I just don't know yet if it's going to be in the beginning of March or more towards the end of March, but it depends on a couple of things happening. I do also have a link to my store in the chat as well, where you can buy the previous issues. But if you want to check it out, if you've never heard of it before and you want to check it out and read it for free, you can head on over to my website at egoworks.com, EGOWORKS, and you can read it for free there. So you can see if this is the type of book that you want to pick up when the Kickstarter goes live. So if you want to keep an eye on it as well, like I said, it's the pre-launch. The pre-launch page is live on Kickstarter. So you just hit that link and Kickstarter will send you an email the second the campaign goes live, so you don't miss anything. So so that's what this is. So this is just, I printed this off of my inkjet and I'm going to be using it, like I said, to just go over the dialogue and just check over some artwork, check over the artwork to make sure that everything is correct so that I can send this off to my printer tomorrow to get the proofs for both issue 12 of Egoraven and the trade paperback. Issue 12 finishes off the trade paperback, and not only where I'll be able, this is volume 2, so I'll be able to send out for volume 3 of the trade paperback in both the comic book size and the smaller digest size. I have been experimenting with different formats for my series, and I decided that like these two were pretty much the main sizes I was going to work with. Although I would eventually like to do a hardcover of everything, in both in like an omnibus edition where it's like you have all 16 issues in one glorious hardcover. But the one that I'm really excited about is the digest size. I'm going to be offering the digest size up when I launch the trade paperback for volume 3 later on this year. It measures 5.5 by 8.5. It's not quite manga size. Unfortunately, I don't have a manga near me right now to give you a size comparison, but it's a smaller size that I think it's a lot more convenient to read, and it fits on your shelf if you are the type who collects manga, and your shelves are a little bit more narrow to to accommodate. But depending on which you prefer, I'm definitely looking to offer both up on my next trade paperback campaign, my volume 3 trade paperback. But I will be getting proofs for that beforehand. So when I get those in, I will show those off, because I'm the type of person on Kickstarter who I need to have everything ready and printed and proofed before I do a Kickstarter. If you're, because it's like there's just way too many people who just run Kickstarters and then like I don't know, like disappear into the wind, like. I don't know. It's like they just don't think twice about letting all their backers hang for much longer than they should. I mean, I know that the challenge with Kickstarter is that it's not Amazon. Um, that that it's like you have to wait until after the campaign ends and after production on the book ends to get your book. It's not like you place an order on Kickstarter and you get the book in 3 days. So it requires a little bit of patience, but I'm of the type that I don't want to stretch that patience. I don't want to test it. Usually once I end a Kickstarter, I send, because everything's ready, in about a week, I do one final check of everything, send everything off to my printers. And then in about 2 to 3 weeks, I have my books back and then I start fulfilling. So like I said, it's not exactly Amazon, but you will get your books within a reasonable amount of time. So, and for those of you just joining us who are not familiar with my series Egoraven, Egoraven, Heir of the First Unicorn, is the story of a unicorn princess exiled into the mortal realm, where she trains to become a knight, hoping to win a king's favor and save her people. In issue 12. Right here of this 16 issue series, Egoraven, the rightful heir of the enchanted kingdom of Edenron, faces the elf prince Ragin and a trio of elves from her past, challenging her right to lead and rule. Even with her friends by her side, the unicorn princess is forced to prove herself again, not only to protect her home, but the entire realm. Is a sword and sorcery fantasy with a soap opera twist, featuring character relationship centered stories with unicorns, elves, dragons, and furries. So I hope that intrigues you enough that you get to check out all the links that I left in the show notes and in the chat. And I hope to see you when the campaign goes live. So that's the major thing that I've been doing these past couple of days. I've been really trying to finish this book because I have a lot of stuff going on that I have to finish, a whole list of stuff before the end of the month. I have another campaign, House of Bob, which is my erotic furry portfolio campaign. All of those sketchbooks, well, most people who just pledged to the sketchbook, they all should have received their books by now. Thank you, everybody who supported that campaign. You can check out my links on Fur Affinity for that. And I am currently in the process of working on everybody's commissions for the House of Bob campaign. I want to get all the commissions penciled out by the end of the month, so that in March I could just spend the time that I have, what time I have in March, to actually just work ink and color as much as I can to get as many of these pieces, if not all of them, all out to their respective backers by the end of April. And then we can finally close out that campaign as well. So yeah, so that's, I think that pretty much tackles all the housekeeping that I have. And yeah, so the topic, I originally had wanted to talk about a campaign that's running on Kickstarter right now, by people who are obviously not really part of the indie comics community, or not really part of the comics community in general, and and they're having a very successful Kickstarter in spite of it. And I remember when I first saw that campaign, I was feeling kind of like all sorts of ways about it. And I had originally wanted to talk about it, but then I kind of like, I don't know, I got to kind of like feeling that it's like, you know what? It's like, why do I need to do that? Why do I need to essentially shit on somebody else's success? It's like these people who are not part of the comics community. They're part of the, romantasy monster, smut community. And they did a comic. They're at $60,000 for their comic. And it's like, you know what? Good for them. And let me just mind my own business. It's like, that's also another habit that I think, too many people in this scene have, is that they get a little too obsessed with counting other people's money. And I decided that's like, you know what? That's not what I want to really talk about. It's like there's plenty of salty people online that you can, if you're into that kind of thing, where they talk more in depth about that. But so I decided not to really add. You know what? I probably added my 2 cents already on the situation. And I'm just going to leave it at that. So instead, I decided to change the topic to something more creative oriented. Because why not, right? It's like, we did a previous show where we talked about how a lot of comic book people, they spend a lot more time talking about the business side of comics rather than their creative side, for whatever reason. It's like but you could check out the previous episode for that. It's called Your Passion is Cringe. And I get more into detail on the previous episode of the vlog. So, for this one, I decided, or more likely I was challenged, that it's like, look, I had this frustration of seeing all these creators not talking about their creation process. And I was pretty much told, it's like, look, if that's the type of thing that you want to listen to, but other people are not talking about it, it means that you're the one that has to talk about it. Lorraine says, it's like, my favorite saying is, it's not my money, so I don't care about it. And in the end, that's what it boils down to. It's like, look, they're doing what they're doing. They're obviously being very successful at it. And, whether they have a connection to the general comic book community or not is actually kind of irrelevant to that. So, so in the end, who am I, to kind of like have an opinion on that? As Marcus Aurelius says, it's like you don't need to have an opinion on everything. So one of the things that I've done in the last couple of months that I felt like that really has gotten me on this like more like creative angle to my work instead of like the business angle. Like I spent so much time on the business angle and marketing and trying to like figure out the tea leaves with that, only to find out that at the level that we're at, marketing really doesn't apply to us. Or at least it really doesn't apply to me. Like it's like I'm just so low on the totem pole that marketing it's kind of like just really doesn't work in the way all these books and the so-called gurus say that you should do it, and it's like unless you have a lot of money and a staff to kind of like to bankroll and to do this kind of like endeavor for you, there's going to be like practically zero gains for the amount of effort that I would have to put into that, or have put into it. Hey Melissa, good morning. Yes, I'm trying both the vertical and the horizontal mode in StreamYard. I was playing around. I started playing around with it on the last episode. And for this episode, I changed some of the graphics so that they would fit better on the vertical, or at least look better. So we'll see. There's still a lot of tweaking that needs to be done. And when it comes to videos, they don't make a distinction between the two. So the videos are still going to be horizontal. I personally still prefer the horizontal format, but for people watching on their phones, the bits that are in vertical, I guess, just works better for them. Oh, hello, Michael. Hello. Welcome. I see everyone's getting like a late start to the day today, but I guess it's like that's what a holiday Monday does, unless you're working. And then it's like, yeah, well, of course. um so aside from this marketing, Melissa says, I've gotten tired of the marketing game. So I hear you. I lost sight of actually making comics. Yeah, that's what it was feeling like. And like I said, it's like the amount of effort that I was putting into it and what little I was getting in return. It's like, I could have spent that time just working, concentrating on comics. So before the end of the year, I decided that, for 2026, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to like kind of like put all that marketing stuff to the side, and I'm going to just concentrate on, on just working on my comics, doing my artwork, and whatever happens, happens. I'm going to do the things that I already enjoy doing, like doing the vlogs and doing my live stream, my drawing live stream. I'm going to, stick with that. But pretty much most of social media, I've pretty much backed off of. And like it's like, so doom scrolling hasn't really been much of an issue for me as it was in the past. And I've really noticed a difference with that. The less I spend online, the more I feel like a lot of more creative avenues open up for me in my work, because I'm not being purposefully distracted by whatever nonsense is going on online. um so because of that, I find myself writing more, I find myself drawing more, working on my comics more, and I just find myself just thinking a lot more creatively. And and it's like, and it's kind of, and I'm actually I'm actually enjoying this this kind of like environment that I've put myself in now, where it's like now it's like instead of watching, getting involved in bullshit online, I am now getting involved with the bullshit I put my characters through, which is a lot more productive, to tell you the truth. I've been writing more, like trying to do working out like a lot more lore. Yeah, that is this the best kind of bullshit. Absolutely. I've been especially playing around with lore for like the long game for my story, even though Egoraven is only like this particular story arc. This story arc, Heir the First Unicorn, is only 16 issues. The story continues well past that. I have a novelization for the series that I'm working on that has a lot of like scenes and extended scenes that aren't in the comic. A lot more lore in that, a lot more, like lore in that, in the novelization that I'm looking forward to putting that out. And then I have a sequel novel that comes after that, that I'm, that I haven't, because it's not on, it's completed. The first draft ish is completed. Because I'm always kind of noodling it without like doing an actual sit down and hard edit on it. And like the illustrations and everything. I mean, so I have that sequel novel in the wings. And then like kind of after that, I have like this whole string of stories that I'm like working my way through, and and even like kind of like and a separate novel that's related to Egoraven, but it's based on a set of different characters, and Egoraven doesn't appear in this novel until like the very, very end in an epilogue. The trick is that I'm trying to do with that novel is create kind of like a standalone novel that's still connected to the main series without you really having to know it that much, although it does help. And the thing that I'm always bumping into is that here I am on issue 12. I still have the last 4 issues to complete. I have 4 issues left. It's like, so also the thing is, to like this past week I had jury duty, and luckily it only lasted a day, and I was able to get out of it, or get excused from it. Not more excuse. I mean, I got the little certificate at the end. I did serve, I did do my jury duty obligation, so I'm good for the next 6 years. And because jury duty is mostly just a lot of sitting around and waiting, once they get the initial roll call and everything done, I had my my portable Wacom tablet, and I was inking Egoraven issue 13 while I was waiting in jury duty, while I was in the pool. So already, the process, I'm already on the next issue, trying to get these last 4 issues done to finish the series, because that's my goal for this year. And as Lorraine said, it's like it's Chinese New Year, it's Fire Horse, and the goal for Metal Pig is completion. Is the completion of creative projects specifically. So that's my goal. Yeah, it's like jury duty is a one-time participation trophy is a good thing. Yes. The funny thing is that because I'm one of these weirdos that actually enjoys jury duty, I did get called in for, I was part of a group that got called in for a case, but it's like, as much as I would have loved to have stayed and gone through the whole process, because it was, not going into detail, not that there was much detail that was given, but it was a murder case. And I was like going, oh snap, if I didn't have these very particular obligations that was coming up in the next couple of weeks, I would have stayed for the entire process. But I had to recuse myself from it. It's just like, the judge did the oath. He asked if anybody couldn't stay the probably month. Yeah, well, hell yeah. Real life Law and Order, exactly. Like if nobody, like the case was going to take about a month, and it's like if you couldn't stay, to just raise your hand. And the funny thing is that I didn't have to explain anything. I just raised my hand. He made us all stand, the people who couldn't stay, and then he dismissed us, right? But not before he gave this little speech saying that it's like, look, just because you can't stay for this case doesn't mean you get to go home. You get put back in the pool, and probably later on in the day, you'll get taken into another court where you might get chosen for that one. And I was like, well, okay, I'm here anyway. So it's like, look, if they send me into another court, my answer is still the same. My situation doesn't change in the couple of hours between two court cases as to whether I get to stay or not. So, and the funny thing is that, so like I said, I didn't have to explain why I couldn't stay. I just raised my hand saying, it's not happening. And they just let me. And then I realized that was the purpose of putting us under oath before he asked that question. Because I didn't realize it until afterwards. Like, oh, of course we don't need to explain it. Because we're already under oath, the expectation is that we're telling the truth, that we can't stay. So works for me. And then like the ironic thing about it is that for all his speech about, oh, you can't just go home afterwards and blah blah blah, that's exactly what happened. I think it was like me and like 7 other people, we got sent back to the main jury room, the main jury pool. We put our little cards in a basket, and then like within 10 minutes, the guy came out with our little certificate saying that we had served, that we had served jury duty, and that we can go home, and that's it. And we were good for 6 years. So, like I said, it worked for me, right? But the whole thing is that I was, while I was waiting there, I was drawing Egoraven issue 13. I mean, I swear to God, this Wacom portable tablet, the Move Ink, best $600 I ever spent, because the fact that the time flew that day in jury duty, because I was working. I was doing in jury duty what I would have been doing at home. So that, so it completely worked out. Like I said, I would have stayed. I would have stayed, but I got too much shit going on and I really couldn't have. So Melissa says it took years to get called for jury duty, and then I didn't even have to go in at all. They didn't even select me as an option. Yeah, that's what happened to Jose. He got called, he got the notice for jury duty, and you have to call like for a week. And then it's like, and then if you make it through the week without getting called, then they consider they consider it time served or something. They send you a certificate in the mail. Like, okay, you weren't called, but see you next time, type of thing. No, I don't think you get a certificate. You just like, they just put you back in the pool, and then you just have to wait until you get that letter again to call back. So so I was working on that, and so like I said, so I'm working on 13 now, and it's like, I have 4 more issues to finish to 16, and it's a little frustrating for me because I'm already way ahead in the storyline. And I mean, we're talking about, it's like my girl has all these adventures, and where my brain is at right now is that it's like, look, am I spoiling shit? Absolutely. But you know what? By the time I get to it, you guys are all going to forget anyway. So I'm at the point in her story where she's expecting, where she's expecting her first kid, and now I'm sitting here spending time trying to figure out the magical rules of an immortal character having a mortal baby. you know, and it's like, I'm all the way over there, you know, and so it's like, so my brain is like, that's where it is right now. So working on these earlier books, it's like, oh my God, I just want to finish this just so I can show you all the really good stuff that I'm doing now. Um, so it's like, yeah, so oh yeah, Melissa, it's more lore stuff, because it's like, yeah, 'cause I'm trying to figure out, like, so of course, like, there's this whole magic system that I have. um so like with any proper fantasy settings, just because it's fantasy doesn't mean you just do whatever the fuck you want. And well, it's a fantasy, you have to, like, what is it? It's like, it's a fantasy. You just have to accept everything. And of course, we've seen collectively enough media to know that that's not true. That it's like, you cannot, even despite whether it's sci-fi, fantasy, whatever, you can't just do anything and expect, the audience to just suspend disbelief just because it's a fantasy. That's actually not how it works. Whenever you hear people talk about, oh, it's not historically accurate, or it doesn't make sense, or it's not realistic, it's not because they're really expecting something to be historically accurate or realistic. What they're really saying is that the rules of your story don't make sense. Where you're establishing something that is or isn't supposed to happen, and then later on in the story, you're contradicting what you've already established. And that's where people really find the frustration in more poorly designed worlds, more poorly designed storytelling. The rules don't work, right? And and that's something that I really take seriously. So it's like, when I'm going to tell you that, it's like, yeah, it's like, here's this character who's immortal, and she finds herself pregnant with a mortal child, right? There's rules that are going to go with that. So that's what, I'm, figuring out. Trying, that I'm currently, figuring out. It's like, okay, what makes sense in this situation? What are the rules of this situation? How does magic work in this situation? Um, so it's like, yeah, so without going into, like, too much detail about it, so that's where my brain is, right? It's just like with this other novel that I'm writing, that I have an outline for, where it's a story about five friends, five dragons. And like I said, that's the story that's connected to Egoraven, but it doesn't have anything really to do with her. It's just kind of like an internal story. Well, it's a story within a story that I would like to flesh out to explain more lore of what's going on, like, in the overall story of the Heir of the First Unicorn storyline. And part of that, part of figuring out that story is the five main characters that are going to inhabit this story. And so part of my process of working on, of working on all of this, right, is that, so how, in the middle of it, you see, because it's not good, it's not healthy, at least for the story, that 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 I just work continuously on it. Right, because it's like, then it's like, you kind of like chewing the information into mush, and it doesn't become helpful at that, in that situation. So what you want to do is that, instead of, like, just completely, like, ruminating on one thing for, like, I don't know, until it just becomes meaningless, you want to be able to intersperse your creative spurts with other creative spurts. It's like, you need to have these mental meals that help nourish what you're trying to do, even if it's not direct, right? So part of well, a big part, especially lately, which keeps me from doom scrolling, and it gives me a break from the work that I'm doing without going completely. Hello, yes, character obsession. Yeah, I'm about to go into that. Um, without without like it allows me to take a break without going online and getting caught up in that nonsense, because honestly, being online, unless it's very specific, like I try to really specifically cater it like to art related forums and stuff, it's not very useful for my creative endeavors. So what I've been doing, bringing out the tablet again, is that I got back into playing my absolutely favorite game, Seeds of Chaos. This is a game that I have been playing on and off for like the past 5 years. It's a game that's currently still in development, and they just recently completed Act One of a 3-act structure. Although they do say that they're trying to finish Act Two a lot faster than, I think it was like the 6 years that it took for them to finish Act One of Seeds of Chaos. I follow them on Subscribestar. And what this game is, it's an erotic visual novel. It's a dark fantasy about our main character, Rowan Blackwell, who his wife is kidnapped by a pair of demon twins, and to force him to work for them. And the story branches off on the idea is that what makes a good person do bad things. And the way you play the sort, it's kind of like if you remember those choose your own adventure books. So it's kind of like that. So that's the main premise of the story, right? And then how you play the game and answer questions and handle the RPG aspects of the game, because it is a game, because it makes you, there's, even though there's a storyline, a through line, you still have to make decisions, and those decisions determine whether your character, the Rowan Blackwell, ends up saved or corrupted at the end. And then there's various degrees of that. So this game had, like I said, it's had me in a chokehold um since I first found it, because I was researching how to do a visual novel and this came up. And and it's like, and yeah, because I know for a fact this scene doesn't lead into anywhere. Because, like I said, it is an erotic novel, and depending on how you play, the sex scenes are the rewards, depending on how much you corrupt the character. The initial game that I've just played recently, I tried to keep it. I wanted the happy ending, which required me to avoid most of those scenes. So all of my replays, um, so there's my boy. There's my boy Rowan. Um, and this character especially, like I said, we're talking about character. This character, I am completely obsessed on. Him and his wife, they are my true pairing in this. Even though the even though the story um the story kind of like allows you to just really really screw them up if you want it, but like I said, that's not my intention for the game. And or at least right now. See, now that I got the happy ending story, I know how to screw them up. late when I do like different runs of the game. And that's what I like so much about it, because it's like I must have played this game like to the end like several times already, but each time I play it, it gives me I try completely different paths. So I end up with different scenes, I end up with different dialogue, and it's really fascinating to see how it changes depending on what I do, what decisions I make, for the character. And playing this game really, really fuels my creative juices. Like every time I play this game, I just want to write like crazy. It's like, holy shit. Like, it's like this, like when I say I'm obsessed with this game, I am obsessed with this game. Like I actually did a series of mini comics based on me playing this game when I first played it. Where it's like I literally have, cartoons in my sketchbook where I'm working out strategy. I'm playing like, so this is me and my OC. This is Loki, and we're both, and so I'm dressed as Rowan Blackwell and he's dressed as the villain, Andres, and it's just us talking about playing the game. And I would just like be figuring out strategy, like just talking about strategy for the game as if we were playing the game together. And and then it's like, and like in this one, we're talking about like how to unlock certain scenes. And and it's just like, and then it's like there's this whole thing about they find out that we thought we were playing the game by ourselves, and it turns out Egoraven's playing the game too, but she's playing, like fully corrupted. The joke being that I'm playing the game too timidly. Loki is telling me to lighten up. It's just a game. And here Egoraven is playing the game completely on dark mode. Like that's literally how this game has me in a chokehold, where it's like I'm making fan art for this game that I use to kind of like to help me work on my own stuff, to kind of like to inspire me to work on my own stuff. And in this particular thing, right, especially with this novel with the 5 dragons that I'm working on, and just like in general, right, the thought of what is it about Rowan Blackwell, the way, especially the way his character can change in the story, but the trick is that he has to be a compelling character from the very beginning for me to care to see him through to the other side. And there just seems to be kind of like this fine line when we're talking about characters in general, when we create characters. Like, what's that fine line with a character, whatever favorite character that you obsess on, right? Is, what's that fine line between a character that's like, oh, that's nice, and it's like you read a book and you just never, or you watch a movie and you never think about it again, right? Or it's like, like these characters live rent free in my head now. Like it seems to be like a very fine line, and it's a line that kind of like shifts in degrees, because that's where the word blurbo comes from. It's based on a tweet that somebody had made about Star Wars, how it's like you'll just see some bullshit character in the background and all of a sudden everybody is obsessing on that character. I think it was a reference to Rogue One, where I think in the trailer there was this little monkey character guy on a machine gun. You only see him for like a split second in the trailer, and like in the movie, if he has 3 minutes on screen, right, that would have been too much. Like like the character's barely there. But between the trailer and between the movie coming out, there was this entire like weird fandom of this character. Where people were making fan art and like fanfic and all this stuff. They were creating this entire environment around this character that doesn't last for 3 minutes in in the actual movie. And someone had made a tweet, it's like, yeah, there's this character named Blorbo, whatever the fuck is in the background, and that's the character. Everyone's like, no, Blorbo, we want to know more about Blorbo. And that's where the word Blorbo became to mean the character that you're obsessed with, or whether it's an OC or a fan character, or like fan, something, like Batman is some people's Blorbos, that type of thing, right? Like nobody had to know anything about this character, and people became feral over. And there's been other examples of that too, and it's like, and then it's like, conversely, you have characters that are introduced with all this lore and all this backstory, and nobody gives a shit. It's like, oh, okay, oh, that's nice. You read the book and it's kind of like, oh, and then it's like, the second you close the book, look, you're reading the book and you don't remember the character's name, right? So it's like, so how is it that some characters can literally just show up and everybody's like going, yeah, that one, right? And then you have the character that has all this meticulous world building and nobody cares. And and then it's like, we have my boy Rowan Blackwell in the Seeds of Chaos game, right? And it's like, what is it about this character that it's like no matter what he does, I'm there. It's like his happy ending, his when he's committing atrocities, it's like, that's my boy. That's my boy, right? It's like and of course and it's also, it helps too that he has this this certain anime look that that I imprinted on when I was younger, like watching Voltron and what was the other one, like Battle of the Planets. Like there was like this certain look the main male characters have. Lotus Wars, Parn, I'm pretty sure this character, like a base for him is Parn from Lotus Wars, especially. Like there's this particular look. Oh, what's his name from Escaflowne? There was yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's just like, it's this particular look. This particular type of male main character, in early anime, that it's just like, Van, yes, it's like, that's, it's like, like in, even like in something like later, like Violet Evergarden, which again is another anime that chokehold, has me in a chokehold. Like you have, you have Violet Evergarden, and then you have the guy that she's obsessed with. I haven't watched it in a while, so I think it's like the Colonel, like I think she calls him the Colonel, and depended on what mood I was in. It's like, Keith, Lance, what? It depended on the mood. Sometimes you needed a Keith, sometimes you needed a Lance, sometimes you needed, Jason, from Battle of the Planets, sometimes. So it depends. So why choose? At the age at the point that I am, why choose? So so yeah, so it's like, so no matter what happens to this character, I am side by side with that character, no matter what, right? And then it's like I had recently read Legend of Earthsea, right? Or was it just the Earthsea? I think Legend of Earthsea might be another one, another one of her books by Ursula K. Le Guin. It's like, this is supposed to be, oh wait, Michael says, I remember that time when I was a kid when the male leads looked so much alike that I got confused if it was the same character. Well, it depends on the show, but trust me, I did not have that problem. So I was reading Earthsea, and this is a book that's considered a classic of literature and blah blah blah, the whole thing, right? When I first started reading it, I couldn't get through like the first couple of pages. I'm like, this is, really weird. Not a weird writing style, but what I felt was like kind of like, and archaic is kind of the wrong word too. It was just like an old-fashioned type of writing style that I really wasn't into at the time, so I didn't get that far into the book. And the reason why I had gotten back to that book was because I was reading one of my novels that I picked up at Monsterotica. And the writing was so amateur, to put it lightly. Even though I liked the concept, I liked the characters, right? But the writing was just not polished enough for me to commit to anything. My like of the characters wasn't enough to push through what should have been a heavily edited book. The book could have easily, if it was edited correctly, it would have been half the size, and maybe I could have gotten through the novel and thought it more entertaining than it turned out to be. I didn't bother finishing it. I ended up just putting it back, and it's like, okay, here's an author I am not going to pick anything up from, and it's like, and that's kind of the thing. It's like, and mind you, it's not like the characters were that deep to begin with. I mean, they were very typical of the genre, the monster smut genre. They were enough to be what I was expecting, but the execution wasn't enough for me to commit to the characters, to care that much about the characters and what they were going through. So because I was so disappointed by the book, I ended up reading Earthsea instead. And then all of a sudden, this kind of like old style writing kind of hit the spot at that point, because it's like the writing that I was reading beforehand was so amateur. I was desperate for something more elevated. So I was able to get through the novel this time around. But right, yeah, no, there is no monster smut in Earthsea. No. No. That was the book before I was reading Earthsea. Although reading it explained Ursula K. Le Guin's criticisms of the Studio Ghibli Earthsea movie. Like, I read the book and I completely understood. It's like, oh, that's what she was complaining about. Side note, her big thing about the animated Earthsea movie that, what was his name? Guo Miyazaki, the son, did. Her biggest complaint was that it was very white. Like they pretty much stuck with completely white characters. And when you read the book, when I read Earthsea, you can see how Ursula K. Le Guin goes out of her way to really show you that this is a diverse world. She describes characters exactly how she wants you to imagine them. And so when you watch, so now that I think on the Earthsea animated, it's like, oh yeah, it's like they just like didn't even try to kind of like imitate that, and it's like, and I understand now why she was upset at the animated movie. But I digress. So the writing style was just so elevated from this amateurly written book that I was reading, that I was able to actually get something out of reading the book. However, you could put a gun to my head and I couldn't tell you the name of the main character. The main character, like I remember the book start, like it introduces the character when he's like really young, like it pretty much like you see him as a child and he grows up to be this wizard or something. And holy shit, could I have not cared less? I couldn't have cared less about this character. Like he was even as a child, he was a miserable fuck. And this was supposed to be a YA book. And, and it's just like the characterization was just like, okay, she can write well, but I had the opposite problem, with this, where it's like her writing style was sophisticated enough that I was able to read through the whole book, but her characters were completely forgettable. Like I said, I couldn't tell you under pressure what the main character's name is. I can kind of remember, the journey, the fact that he accidentally resurrected this shadow thing that attached to him, imprinted on him, and he had to chase it across the world of Earthsea. And it's like, okay, like I swear to God, I remember when I saw the animated Earthsea, and I go, how do you make a dragon fight so fucking boring? And then I read Earthsea, and that's exactly what Ursula did. Like, there's an entire scene where the kid fights a dragon, and it is just like the most straight-faced, boring shit that it's just like, it was just something that I read through. I mean, it wasn't something that I had no sense of real investment in the story, that it was literally just her technical writing, her technical skill at writing that would kind of like got me through the book. So it's like kind of like the complete opposite, where it's like one book, yeah, I could have been interested enough in the characters, but the story was just like too poorly done, for me to kind of like move ahead, to kind of like read through it and care about the characters more. And then in this case, you have this obviously lauded, sophisticated author. And it's like, oh, who fucking cares? So it is, so it is kind of like weird to kind of like, yeah, it's like what is it like, at what point do like, and the thing is that we all have different characters that we consider like, oh, this is this is the character I'm going to obsess on, and this is the character I'm going to ignore. Right? Because it's like, you have people who obsess on Batman, like Batman's their Blorbo, Superman's their Blorbo, Wonder Woman's their Blorbo, and I could care less about those characters. Does it mean that they're bad characters? No, it just means that there's something about these characters that don't resonate with me. No matter who writes it. It's kind of like Jose was showing me this artist. Like, I kind of know who he is. He's a professional artist or what. And he's showing me the guy's artwork. And it's kind of like, oh, who cares? Because all it was all like these Marvel characters. And it's like, holy shit, if you wanted me to really lose interest in an artist, just have them start drawing Marvel characters or DC characters or like really big IP characters. And it's just like, there's plenty of other artists for me to look at. Like those characters I have no resonance with. It's like, so it's like visually, right? It's like there is nobody who could make me enjoy a superhero comic aside from like very few, it's like very few examples. And even then it's not really the characters I'm into, like I can look at Arthur Adams' artwork, no matter who he draws. But, again, it's like I find his, like the Marvel stuff that he does, the characters are boring, but it's his skill that makes me interested in the artwork. Right? But this guy that Jose was showing me, it's like his skill didn't even interest me enough for me to give a shit. So, again, so it's like, so the characters, like, so what is it? So I was like really thinking about it, that it's like, okay, so what makes a character, like what makes people attach themselves to a character, and I think that a part of that analysis is that there has to be like a good character has to have a certain level of projection in them. Like you have to have them fully fleshed out, or not even, but they have to be fleshed out with enough room for the viewer to project onto them somehow. And I think that that's where the connection comes in. So when you have kind of like these background characters that people latch onto, I mean, we're talking about a full tabula rasa there, where it's like there's something about this character that's supposed to be a background character that people then take that opportunity to make something of that character based on what they're needing at the time. Right? It's kind of like take something like Avatar, right? Where it's like on one hand you have people saying that these are the most brainless bullshit movies ever to exist, yet the shit still makes over $1 billion at the box office. So it can't be that bullshitty. Right? But this last one in particular really pushed a lot of my buttons. And where the first two movies, and mind you, I love this series. I love the Avatar series. The James Cameron Avatar. I am not familiar with The Last Airbender, and to tell you the truth, I think this is an example of like James Cameron's Avatar characters resonate with me, but Avatar The Last Airbender characters don't do anything for me. Like, I could care less about that series. As much as people keep saying that, oh, the storytelling's tight and everything, and the characters and the symbolism, it's like, I could care less. Couldn't care less. And and it's like, and I think with like Avatar, James Cameron's Avatar, it has like a lot of things that I don't know. It's like, maybe it's the lushness of the environment that he creates, right? The basic, Pocahontas in space story. Maybe, I don't know, maybe there's something about that I like. Maybe it's 7-foot tall cat guys, cat people. Maybe that, blue cat people. Maybe that might have something to do with it. Which only later on did I realize completely explains Ice Planet Barbarians. So yeah. So when people joke that, James Cameron's Avatar had no cultural effect, all you have to do is look at the smut girlies to know, oh yes, it did. Oh yes, it did. So especially in this last one, right? And what I think I really liked about, what really like got me about Avatar, right, is not the main character Jake Sully. He's not the character that I'm into, that I'm really following in this series. It's the corporal. I forgot his name. Because again, there is a certain brain deadness to Avatar. I'm not going to say it doesn't have it, but the personality of the corporal, who's the main villain of the series, that's my guy. That's my guy in the series. I mean, it's like there's just something about him that, yeah, like I said, that's my guy. And like with a lot of good villains, right? It's like, again, it's like there's a certain, I think that there's like a certain, they're villains, but there's just something about them. And the actor's really good too. Because he I think, was it him? He was in this other movie where he plays a blind, like a blind veteran, and he stalks these kids trying to rob his house. And that movie goes really, really dark. And it's like, and you think that he's kind of like the put upon like hero, like he's like kind of like the put upon, he's the sympathetic character, and then that shit goes like a complete 180 by the third act, and you find out that he is a really, really dark villain. So he's good at that. So he plays this villain in Avatar, James Cameron's Avatar, that he's the character that I follow. And especially in this last movie, he hooks up with this absolutely magnificent villain chick. And that's it. It's like that. There's my, there's my team right there. There's my ultimate villain team. Oh, and the whale that chooses violence. Although he's not a villain, the whale is not a villain, but the whale chooses violence, and it's important to the story. So yeah, between those two and the whale and violence whale, it's like that's where I find my emotional resonance to the story, to these characters. And it's like, and it's just like, especially in this last movie, that the villains are just top-notch villains. So So when I talk about characters, I'm not necessarily talking about good guys, just like good guys in general. I mean, it's like, because you can have a character and they could not be anything. They sometimes they're not anything. Like I said, going back to the Seeds of Chaos game, the thing that I like about the game is the way that I can pretty much change the parameters of the story and still have this character be my main focus. Like, although conversely, though, for a while, Andras, the demon villain, right? He fit that because it was the both of them. The both of them were my husbandos for a while. So you had Rowan and you had Andras, and it's like, okay, these are my two guys here, right? And then in this last update, I got to see Andras do shit that finally crossed the line for me. That it's like where he went from a husbando villain to just a villain. And it's like, oh, Rowan got to take you down. And it was just kind of funny to realize that, where it's like up until this point, Andras was just like, he was like a perfect villain for me. And then they wrote something into the story where his cruelty to Rowan's wife got to such a level I could not, even for a villain, I couldn't condone it. It's like, nah, this is not cute anymore. Your villainy is not cute anymore. And it's like, and just like that, like off the list you go. Out of the house. Out of the house you go. Out of the fandom dumpster. Out you go. And I have yet to see Rowan do that. And I'm kind of wondering, and mind you, I've accidentally played really, really corrupted Rowan for a while. Although there are certain things that he does do to his wife in very, very corrupt mode that I'm like going, nah, yeah, like he hits that threshold, but I'm so dedicated to the character that I pull back when I see what's happening, because I don't want to cross that line where I start hating his character too. Even though I could replay the game and switch him up again and put him back. So now that I got the happy ending, the hero Rowan, I did the hero's path in the game. So now, like I said, now that I know how to play the hero's path, now I know how to like corrupt him and Alexia, that's his wife. I know how to corrupt them enough so that they could become tyrants together. That I could turn them into villains I can enjoy. I got to see them as heroes I can enjoy. Now I can corrupt them enough where they can become villains I enjoy. With Andras, you can't really, you're not playing him, so you're at the mercy of what gets triggered in the game. It's random. So, it's kind of like the weird shit that happens in The Sims that you have no control over, even though I've never played The Sims. So it's like, so now it's like I can turn them. So I have my heroes, and now I get to have villain versions of them. So it's called the corrupted, was it the corrupted couple path? Corrupted together. That's the path. It's the corrupted together path. Where they pretty much become a villain power couple at the end of the game. And now that's the part that I want to play. And and like I said, it's like every time I play this game, it really, really fuels my creativity because of all the different ways, like, because I think like this game has probably like a dozen writers on it. So depending on which branches you take, you're getting a different writing style. And it's very interesting to see, like, oh, like when I read the forums, people know if you play the game long enough and you know who the writers are, you actually start recognizing who wrote this and who wrote that. And it's like, and everyone, because it's a porno game, if you play it wrong or right, depending, depending how you look at it, because it's a porn game, everyone writes under pseudonyms. Like, so there are no real credits to the game. Like the guy who created the game, he goes by Lord Ariok. So if you wanted to find him on Patreon and you want to support him on Patreon, which I did for a while, his account is under Lord Ariok, right? The name of the company is Venus Noir. So Lord Ariok makes the game. I think his subscribe star is under Venus Noir. The difference is that because I pay for the game through Subscribestar because it's the uncensored version of the game. Patreon and the Android version that I play on the tablet, it's heavily edited because of Apple Pay and because Patreon got to stick up their ass now. And but the versions that I get off of Subscribestar, because I'm a patron of them there, I play it on my computer, and that's the full version of the game. So I get to see like all the darker stuff that they were forced to edit out of the game. I mean, it's not the darker stuff. What it is that Patreon and Apple has this shit against furry porn and hentai. Oh, hey, Efrain. And they had to edit all that shit out. All the furry stuff out. So I don't really get the furry stuff. Like Rowan interacts with the furry characters, but he doesn't interact with the furry characters. So it's like, so if you wanted to like, so I support them on that. And so everybody works under pseudonyms, so, and also they have their specialties, their fetish specialties the whole thing, like watching this whole project unfold is fascinating to me. And like I said, every time I play the game, it makes me want to write and create and just do all sorts of stuff and think about my writing differently and thinking about certain things differently. And, and it's like, and it's like, and that's just kind of like one of the things. It's like, because I was talking to Jose, about this. It's like, what makes, it's like, because you see a lot of advice online about how to create a character, a compelling character. And Jose goes, that advice is bullshit. Because most of the time, the advice makes you create a character like you're creating a role-playing character. And he says that, what happens is that then you have all these amateurs creating their characters like that, not realizing that when they write their story, their character sounds exactly like a role-playing character going through the motions, as opposed to like the way like we have a very similar writing style where it's like we don't really plan, we have like a basic idea for what our characters are, kind of like these 5 dragon friends, right? So I have a basic idea as to what I want these characters to be like, but I'm not going to figure it out until I get the story rolling, until I actually put them in the middle of the story and I start to flesh out the story, which then simultaneously starts to flesh out the character. I don't write Bibles, for the characters. The same thing with all the lore. I don't really write anything ahead of time. I just write the story and then just kind of like go with my gut as to what sounds right, what sounds correct. And then and then it's like, and then fix whatever contradicts as I go along. Because I don't want my characters to sound like I just rolled a die and gave them personality traits based on that, because it's not a role-playing game. This is a story. This is an environment I'm creating. And which is kind of sometimes my problem with a lot of people who do fantasy comics is that they're basing it on their role-playing games and their role-playing characters, and the shit shows. And it's like, and because of that, I don't, as much as I love fantasy, not all fantasy is created equal. And especially if you're telling me it's based on your role-playing game. Oh, we had this cool thing happen in our game, and we thought it would make an even cooler comic. Spoiler alert, no, it doesn't. Michael says it's sad people group together furries all together when a bad person is revealed happen to like furry stuff. I don't think look, considering I don't think that's the case, because every genre has their fair share. But and it's like, it's not like, it's like, look, there's just as many shitty people writing superhero comics as there are and are in superhero fandom as there are in furry fandom. But people don't say, oh, you have to get rid of the superhero stuff or else we can't have it on Apple, on the Apple store. Like, that's ridiculous. I mean, it's like, Jesus Christ. I mean, Dragon Con was run by a legit pedophile for the longest time, but it doesn't, but people are able to separate that person from the rest of like the convention as a whole and, fantasy fandom as a whole. But furry is different. I think that there's just something else going on there, that people are like really uptight about furries, and they're projecting shit onto it that they really shouldn't be projecting on it, because these are not animals. These are people. These are people who happen to be animals. You kind of catch my drift. So people get weird about that, because they're, but then also it's like they also did remove a lot of the fetish stuff, that it's like, like I said, the hentai stuff, the tentacle stuff, they took out of the game. I'm not sure if they took out the pony play stuff is gone from, it's like, it's, look, it's platforms being platforms, let's just put it that way. So where was I? So that's pretty much what I've been thinking about, these past couple of days. Like, I've been really like, it's like, once, I've been having a lot of fun with the work that I'm doing. Now it's kind of like, so now that this part is done, the comic is done, now I can like kind of move on to the more tedious maintenance stuff. Now it's all about setting up files, getting print files done, touching up, the back end of Kickstarters, kind of like more admin stuff now. That's kind of like the boring shit, even though it's related to all of this, but luckily, I'm able to kind of like, still kind of, ruminate, on this stuff and on this lore and all these like fantasy rules I'm trying to figure out, and like, trying to figure out like, okay, what's, what am I doing with these characters, and like, and how do I, and how does their story affect how I'm going to present them as characters. Oh, thank you, Michael. Thank you. He says, I can tell you can put a lot of work into the story. It's very compelling. Yeah, not bad for someone who makes it up as they go along. Right? But that's what it is, right? It's like they say that there's two types of writers. You're either a planner or a pantser. You have, the planner who they do everything all in advance. Nothing is a surprise. They write out all their notes and their lore and their story Bibles and the whole thing. And then you have people like me where it's like, let's get this party started. I have my basic idea. I kind of have an outline, as to what I want. Now let's fit all the pieces together. And then okay, here are all the cool scenes I want. How do I get to those cool scenes? How do I get to the ending? How do I get, it's like, and then it's like, and then, the fun part is kind of like figuring out that's like, oh shit, my character actually does this or does that. Like, that's like a whole other conversation we could have. It's like, does the character is the character dictating to you what they need? Or it's like, kind of like that whole muse thing, so it's so yeah, so it's just like, yeah, I put a lot of thought into this, and by removing social media in the way that I did, really cleared up a lot of space for me to continue putting that effort into my storytelling and my work, and to and I hope that comes out in the work that I do, in the comics that I do, that it's like, thank you, Michael, that really means a lot, to say that's like, oh, I read Egoraven and it's obvious that there's a lot going on here in a good way. And yeah, and you know what? And that's always, worth the effort. So we made it to the hour and a half mark. Unfortunately, Nita couldn't make it today, but I hope that you guys enjoyed, what I was able to bring to this lone table today. But you know what? It's like I had a lot of fun talking about this. Like this really is the type of topic. Let the other shows talk about business ad nauseum. It's like this is kind of like more the conversations, I like to have, with well, considering how I put my characters through situations. Considering how many situations I put my characters through, it's like, yes. It's like, I'm writing along and all of a sudden it's like, oh, time to torture characters again. Time to torture the characters. Instead of time to make the donuts, it's time to torture the characters, but hey, that's where the story lies. My goodness. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining me today. Thank you so much, everybody in the chat, for keeping me company. Thank you so much to all of my beautiful eyeball people listening to me in the background. I hope that you got something out of it, that you were entertained, the whole 9 yards. At least if you listen to the end, at least I know I didn't bore you. At least there's that. But no, seriously though, it's like, I really appreciate everybody who spent this hour and a half with me. You could be doing anything else. You could be listening to anything else. And instead you are actually listening to me. And I appreciate every single one of you for that. And like I said before at the beginning of the show, while you're here, how about you hit that like, share, and subscribe button? Leave a comment. What's your take on what I said? If you're catching this on the replay, it's like, what are your thoughts on everything that I just said here about what makes a good character, a bad character? It's like, is it really about good and bad? Are they bad characters, or are you just not resonating with them? Is there something about the story that these characters reside in that does nothing for you? So is it really bad, or is it just not to your taste, or is it just not, it's not for you, right? I mean, that's, it's very easy to say something's bad and shitty and blah, 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 but is it really? Is it? And that's just something, for us to think about. So leave your thoughts, down below. I really appreciate it. So that's it for me. Thank you, everybody, for joining. If you want to learn more about me and my artwork and everything else that I do, including my upcoming Kickstarters, you can head on over to my main portfolio site at Egoraven. Oh, well, you can egoworks.com, EGOWORKS, where you can read Egoraven, Heir the First Unicorn, for free. But if you prefer if you prefer your fantasy to be more of a furry Lord of the Rings adventure, you can follow the link over to Tall Tales. That's TAILS online.com, and you can read the entire archive of over 1,000 pages there as well for free. And remember that Egoraven, Heir of the First Unicorn, issue 12 is on Kickstarter pre-launch right now. Link is in the chat and in the show notes. And also, while you're here, before you go, while you're even on my website, don't forget to sign up for my newsletter, where you can keep up to date with all of my new art, sketchbooks, comics, Kickstarters, and also you can get a free comics bundle in PDF format just for joining. You can enjoy Egoraven for free, Tall Tales for free, and the Oswald Chronicles for free just for signing up. Click the QR code on the screen, sign up, and get all those books and never miss a thing. So thank you again, everybody, for joining me on this holiday Monday. I hope the rest of your day goes well, whether you're sleeping in or just trying to get through work. I hope it all just goes really fast for you. And you enjoy your day. And in the words of the ancients, eat your food, moisturize, mind your business, and do the work. Because when you actually do the work, you never have to fake any of your accomplishments. Thank you so much again, and we'll see you next time.
I got nowhere else to go! I got nowhere else to go! I got nothing else.
I told him I can be